Breaking, ICE and DEA raid Cartel Stronghold in Georgia. They had grenade launchers and $1.2 billion seized. Now, let's get into the details.
No! Man! Man! Don't resist, man!
What happens when a peaceful American street transforms in a single heartbeat into the front line of a hidden war? What does it mean for national security when the most violent cartel in the Western Hemisphere buries itself not in remote desert compounds, but inside an ordinary Georgian home? Before sunrise, that question roared to life as a flashbang ripped through the silence of Jefferson detonating with the force of a thunderclap. Red and blue lights carved through the darkness. Tactical boots hit pavement. Neighbors stared from behind curtains as federal agents surrounded what looked like a typical family residence until the front door was torn open and the truth spilled out like smoke. In the era of President Donald Trump's renewed pressure on transnational criminal networks, the war that once seemed distant now burned on American soil. The raid marked the opening move of Operation Take Back America, a multi-agency strike forged by the FBI, ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, the DEA, U.S. Marshals, and local units. What they expected was a drug house. What they found was a fortress. Inside, according to federal case files, lay plastic-sealed bricks of cocaine and methamphetamine trays dusted with fentanyl, and most alarming, an armory containing 26 firearms and a military-grade grenade launcher. The walls were lined with blueprints mapping narcotics routes, ciphered payment codes, and communications linking Georgia directly to a Mexican command hierarchy. The key development was chilling. This was no street gang. This was a paramilitary node of the CJNG, one of the world's most violent cartels, renowned in Reuters and BBC reporting for its military training, armored convoys, and rapid territorial expansion. The structure mirrored battlefield doctrine roles, weapons, encrypted logistics embedded seamlessly inside a suburban home, steps away from families, schools, and quiet cul-de-sacs. Strategically, the operation exposed a critical national vulnerability. If a foreign cartel can build a command post inside Georgia without detection, what does that reveal about gaps in intelligence monitoring? Border networks and domestic surveillance analysts reviewing the seized materials concluded that the cartel's footprint had evolved beyond smuggling. It had become an infiltration model blending into ordinary American life while using U.S. streets as rear operating bases. For Washington, the findings aligned with warnings issued by Defense News and The Guardian. Modern criminal networks increasingly behave like non-state military actors capable of destabilizing regions far from their origins. The human impact was immediate. Parents in Jefferson awoke to the realization that a professional narco-military outpost had operated steps from their children. Local police reported spikes in hotline calls as residents questioned how deeply this network had penetrated their community. If such a structure existed here, how many more lay undiscovered across the country? As daybreak melted into the smoky dawn and the seized weapons were carried into armored vans, one question cut through the relief and the fear. If this was only the first raid, what stronger shadows still hide across America's neighborhoods, and how prepared is the nation to confront them? How does a drug empire hide in plain sight so flawlessly that its couriers walk past professors, students, and families without raising a single alarm? That question haunted investigators as they stepped deeper into the network uncovered in Jefferson. What the first raid revealed was only the surface of a structure that, according to federal intelligence, had been expanding for years beneath the rhythms of ordinary American life. The CJNG's presence was no longer a distant menace across the border. It had become a fully embedded paramilitary enterprise disguised as suburbia itself, operating with the precision of a foreign intelligence service. The event unfolded with disturbing clarity. Inside the seized properties, agents discovered ledgers, burner phones, and coded messages, each confirming that the network was not improvised but engineered. Office spaces posing as tire shops, cafes that never reached profitability, and real estate fronts moved millions of dollars through silent transactions. According to seized documents, the cartel funneled cash using shadow banks with links traced to Chinese intermediaries, mirroring laundering routes previously reported in DW and Reuters investigations into global narco finance. Key developments emerged as analysts reconstructed the pattern. The cartel's couriers operated as though drawn from an intelligence manual. College rentals used as safe houses. Delivery drivers doubling as narcotics couriers. Encrypted transfers executed within minutes of command signals. Street-level operatives with assigned military-style roles. Cook, courier, guard. What stunned agents most was the illusion of normalcy. Just blocks from the University of Georgia, couriers exchanged packages under street cameras without a single bystander noticing. Federal surveillance logs revealed that these individuals blended seamlessly into city life. They attended gym sessions, ate at local diners, and pushed product mere steps away from students, unaware that their neighbors were soldiers of a transnational criminal army. Strategically, the implications rippled beyond Georgia. Investigators comparing the operation to previous cartel expansions in Europe, reported extensively by The Guardian and BBC, found a recurring pattern. Foreign criminal networks insert themselves gradually silently until an entire region becomes dependent on their illicit economy. Analysts warned that the same trend had begun here. The CJNG branch uncovered in Georgia possessed the hallmarks of a forward operating command cell, not a local distribution hub. Its structure mirrored insurgent models, decentralized units, encrypted logistics, redundant couriers, and rapid reconstitution capabilities. For national security strategists under President Donald Trump's administration, the discovery underscored a growing reality. America's greatest threats aren't always foreign armies, they are covert networks that infiltrate economically, socially, and digitally. And unlike traditional foes, these groups blur the boundary between crime and warfare. With military-grade weapons already recovered, including the grenade launcher found in Jefferson, the capacity for escalation is undeniable. The human impact stretched deeper than narcotics. Families in quiet neighborhoods now grappled with the revelation that cartel operatives lived among them, masquerading as ordinary citizens. Daily routines, walking children to school, visiting corner shops, jogging through parks, now seemed shadowed by uncertainty. If a foreign cartel could infiltrate residential communities without being detected for years, what had gone unnoticed in other states? How many more ordinary homes concealed encrypted phones, chemical residues, or blueprinted trafficking routes? The deeper agents probed into the seized files, the clearer the picture became. This was not infiltration by chance. It was infiltration by design, deliberate, structured, and patient. And so, the question hanging over Georgia and perhaps over America itself grew sharper. If a cartel can live undetected inside the suburbs, how far has its empire already spread, and what will it take to expose the next hidden stronghold? What happens when one raid becomes 12 and a hidden war suddenly stretches across an entire state? When federal agents breached the first safe house in Jefferson, the discovery was so severe high-grade narcotics military weapons coded ledgers that immediate expansion became inevitable. Within hours, a coordinated statewide operation erupted, transforming Georgia into the epicenter of one of the most sweeping cartel takedowns in recent U.S. history. The illusion of safety shattered as heavily armed teams advanced simultaneously through Athens, Atlanta, and nearby towns, executing a synchronized strike designed to cut off every escape route, every warning system, every potential regrouping point. The event unfolded with military precision. 13 federal and state agencies moved as a single organism, breaching doors within seconds of one another, the timing so exact it resembled a battlefield maneuver rather than civilian policing. Inside one location, agents seized $900,000 and meticulously kept ledgers, the kind of accounting one would expect from a multinational corporation, not a narcotics cell. In another, burner phones buzzed with frantic messages from Mexico, confirming that operatives across the border had realized the network was collapsing in real time. Key developments emerged quickly. The seizures included 1 ton of pure cocaine, 750,000 counterfeit pills, 1.7 kilograms of fentanyl, 3 tons of cartel-linked gold bullion, dozens of unregistered firearms including AR-style rifles and handguns, encrypted laptops, and coded route maps detailing interstate distribution lines. These numbers, validated by forensic accounting teams, pointed to a trafficking structure dwarfing typical regional operations, one more reminiscent of cartel activities previously investigated by Reuters, DW, and The Guardian in their coverage of global narcotics flows. The Georgia network analysts concluded was not an extension, it was a command pillar designed to anchor a broader East Coast strategy. Strategically, this shifted the conversation from crime control to national defense. The speed and depth of the raids confirmed that the cartel operated with military-grade coordination, echoing patterns documented by Janes and Defense News regarding non-state groups that hybridize criminal enterprise with battlefield tactics. Commands sent from Mexico were received and executed in Georgia in minutes. Supply chains spanned multiple states. Financial routes stretched into shadow banking circuits abroad. This was warfare without uniforms fought inside American cities. Residents, meanwhile, faced a surreal new reality. Parents flooded college hotlines demanding to know whether campus areas had been compromised. Local leaders reported an atmosphere of disbelief. How could such an operation thrive directly beside suburban housing, churches, and shopping centers? Fear turned into anger as communities realized that suspects apprehended in the raids included repeat offenders who had resumed cartel roles immediately after parole, revealing systemic cracks in monitoring and rehabilitation systems. As sunrise swept across the state, convoy after convoy of seized evidence moved under heavy escort toward federal facilities. The images, armored trucks rolling past schools and markets, symbolized a deeper truth: the enemy had been operating within arm's reach for years before the first door ever shattered. And yet the biggest question remained unanswered. If 12 locations were struck in one night, how many undiscovered nodes still pulse quietly across the American map? And when will the next hidden cell come into view? What does it mean when a cartel already exposed, already cornered, still dares to send orders deep into American territory? And what happens when those orders are intercepted at the exact moment another lethal shipment is mobilizing across state lines? That moment arrived at 07:45 hours when an encrypted message pierced the post-raid silence. Phase 2 shipment delayed. Heat switch route south. The line was short, clinical, and devastatingly clear. A second convoy was on the move, almost certainly carrying narcotics powerful enough to kill thousands. In the tense atmosphere of President Donald Trump's intensified pressure on transnational criminal networks, hesitation was not an option. The event triggered an instantaneous response. ICE air reconnaissance drones launched from a Macon airstrip, screaming into the sky. Below them, FBI tactical teams surged onto rural highways, vanishing into the morning fog like phantoms. Thermal cameras swept the dense Georgia tree line until analysts spotted several heavy-duty trucks idling beneath thick canopy, cover their engines still warm. If those vehicles reached Interstate 85, their contents matching the packaging seized in Athens would disappear into the bloodstream of America's cities. The operation shifted from investigation to interception. Key developments escalated quickly. The first truck surrendered, the second accelerated, the third tried to ram a blockade. Tactical units boxed in the rogue vehicle, shoving it into a ditch with armored precision. Inside the trailer, agents discovered compressed bricks of narcotics, hidden firearm compartments, and a partially disassembled M203 grenade launcher tube, proof that the cartel was not retreating but rearming. Confiscated phones linked multiple aliases to a single international number traced back to Culiacan, Sinaloa, confirming that the Georgia cell was not an isolated outpost but a directly managed extension of cartel command. Strategically, the significance was explosive. The Guardian and Reuters have long documented the evolution of cartels into hybrid paramilitary entities capable of deploying drones, digital encryption, and multi-state logistics. This operation offered a real-time demonstration. The encrypted message, the coordinated vehicle, shifts the presence of advanced weaponry. Each reflected a network thinking like a military formation, not a drug ring. U.S. counter-narcotics teams had disrupted the cartel structure, but they had not severed its nerve centers. Orders from Mexico reached Georgia faster than many domestic law enforcement alerts. The human impact of the pursuit spread beyond the convoy itself. Rural residents reported hearing the rumble of armored engines on back roads usually reserved for farm trucks. Parents kept children indoors as helicopters thundered overhead. Local sheriffs described towns frozen in place, unsure if gunfire or explosions would erupt next. The discovery of a half-assembled grenade launcher sent shockwaves through community briefings. One detonation near a school, a gas station, or a college dorm would have been catastrophic. And then came the moment that jolted federal teams' mysterious drones hovering above an evidence facility hours after the arrests. Engineers later confirmed they were custom-built retrieval drones designed to lift hard drives or small objects. Their presence marked a shift from defensive operations to counterintelligence warfare. The message was unmistakable: the cartel had eyes in the sky, and they were not done watching. As the last seized truck was secured under federal escort, the atmosphere among the agents shifted. Relief battled with realization. Even with a convoy, stopped suspects detained, and weapons confiscated, one truth stood unchallenged: this enemy adapts, evolves, and resurfaces. And so the question echoed across the command center, and the community still processing the sirens of the night. If the cartel can attempt a counterstrike under federal lockdown, what level of escalation might come next, and how far will America need to go to stop it? What does it reveal about a cartel's reach when its final line of defense is not a gunman, not a getaway driver, but a drone hovering silently over a federal evidence vault? And what does it say about the scale of the threat when those drones appear after the network's leadership has been arrested, its weapons seized, and its financial pipelines disrupted? That moment struck federal teams across Georgia like a cold warning. The cartel was wounded, but nowhere near defeated. The event unfolded only hours after agents intercepted the fleeing convoy. Inside the Athens command center, cyber forensic units sifted through seized laptops and encrypted phones. What they uncovered confirmed the nightmare scenario. Dismantling one cell had exposed something larger, deeper, and shockingly modern. The cartel was running a bi-coastal digital command grid with transactions routed through offshore accounts, cryptocurrency wallets, and shell corporations that spanned Texas, California, and Georgia. The seized devices pointed not to a collapsing network, but to an adapting one already shifting to replace its losses in real time. Key developments emerged with alarming speed. Homeland Security investigations froze 7 digital wallets, locking down over $900,000 in cartel proceeds. Shadow banks linked to Chinese intermediaries previously identified in international Reuters investigations into global money laundering were traced through a lattice of fake storefronts. One tire shop that hadn't sold a tire in 2 years moved nearly $1 million per week. Another front used altered real estate transactions to bury cartel money inside legitimate mortgages. Each financial strand pointed to a broader strategy: embed criminal flows inside everyday America until the line between legal and illegal becomes indistinguishable. This raised major strategic alarm bells in Washington. Cartels like CJ&G, long documented by DW and The Guardian for their hybrid warfare tactics, had now fused narcotics trafficking with cyber-enabled financial operations. The digital heat map produced by FBI cyber units glowed red, with undiscovered warehouses, safe houses, and relay points each connected by encrypted communication channels. The network's speed and its ability to rewire itself digitally resembled tactics used by insurgent groups rather than criminal gangs. But nothing captured the evolving threat more than the drones. Local sheriffs reported multiple unidentified quadcopters above an evidence facility near midnight. They were agile, silent, modified to lift small objects, hard drives, flash, storage-coded ledgers. Engineers later confirmed the devices were custom retrieval drones, likely deployed to recover incriminating data before federal teams could decrypt it. The message, according to case analysts, was unmistakable: "We know where you keep the trophies." The human impact intensified as news spread. Residents already shaken by the raids now faced the realization that the cartel was not only armed and embedded, it was watching, learning, adapting. Parents asked whether their neighborhoods had been surveilled. Local officials feared the drones signaled reconnaissance for retaliation. Anxiety grew in towns where agents had seized weapons and narcotics earlier that day. If a cartel could deploy drones over federal property, what could stop them from monitoring the homes of investigators, witnesses, or ordinary families? Strategically, this marked a new chapter in the conflict. The war had shifted from streets and safe houses to servers and airspace. The seizure of massive narcotics quantities demonstrated America's operational superiority, but the cartel's counterintelligence attempts exposed a modern truth: enemies of the state now operate across 3 domains simultaneously: physical, financial, and digital. Under President Donald Trump's tightened enforcement environment, the United States had shown that it could strike hard. But the cartel's response revealed that even a decisive blow did not end the battle. It merely forced the enemy to evolve. And so a sobering question settled over Georgia's command posts and the communities now aware of the unseen war around them. If cartels are now fighting with drones, digital networks, and global shadow banks, how must America adapt next, and how long before the next strike comes, not from a street corner, but from the sky or the servers that run the nation itself? What happens when a foreign cartel loses its safe houses, its weapons, its gold, its commanders, yet still manages to whisper one final warning from the shadows? That question hung in the air as dawn rose for the second time over Jackson County, illuminating a warehouse-turned-command post where exhausted agents gathered around digital boards flashing the same phrase: "Target zones secured." Operation Take Back America had succeeded, but the war it revealed was far from over. The event marked the culmination of one of the most extensive cartel takedowns on U.S. soil. Convoys moved under heavy escort, transporting mountains of seized evidence: 1 ton of cocaine, 3 tons of gold bullion, 1.7 kilograms of fentanyl, and over 750,000 counterfeit pills. Tables inside the FBI's central hub displayed a small armory, 12 rifles, 14 handguns, and the infamous grenade launcher recovered from Jefferson. A commander reviewing the weapon spoke bluntly: "One pull of that trigger and this would have been a morgue, not a courtroom." Key developments reached Washington within hours. Early intelligence briefings praised the raid as a model for interagency cooperation, aligning with concerns long documented by The Guardian, Reuters, and BBC about the rising militarization of transnational organized crime. Under President Donald Trump's security posture, the operation reinforced a critical message: the United States will strike hard when foreign criminal actors attempt to embed themselves in American communities. Strategically, however, a deeper truth overshadowed the victory. As forensic teams sifted through devices, a final encrypted phrase surfaced from a rugged hard drive seized in Cochito's Stronghold. Phase 3 new routes ready. The message meant the cartel had contingency plans already in place. It signaled new corridors, new operatives, new tactics waiting to activate. The enemy had lost a battle, not the campaign. The human impact resonated across Georgia. Families stood outside crime scenes staring at homes they once thought were ordinary. Students in Athens questioned how a narcotics empire rose beside their campus without notice. Communities realized the raids were not merely police actions, they were acts of domestic defense against a foreign network that had infiltrated their neighborhoods. Relief mixed with unease. If this could happen here, where else had the cartel planted its roots? The operation provided clarity, but not closure. It showed that cartels no longer operate like traditional criminal groups. They move like insurgencies, adaptable, decentralized, digitally fluent, and financially global. Federal agents had seized the weapons, frozen the crypto wallets, and captured 17 suspects, including the ringleader, Cochito. Yet analysts emphasize that cartels regenerate fast, replacing fallen operatives with recruits who view prison time as a career intermission, not a deterrent. As sunset settled over the command post, the final lesson of the operation became clear. America was no longer confronting drug traffickers alone. It was confronting foreign criminal states disguised as cartels fighting hybrid wars across borders, streets, and cyberspace. And so one final question lingered heavy and inevitable. If this was just one cell in one state, how vast is the unseen network still threading through America, and how prepared is the nation for the next phase of a war it can no longer afford to ignore? The raids across Georgia exposed a hidden battlefield where a foreign cartel had embedded itself deep within American communities. What began as a pre-dawn operation in Jefferson quickly unfolded into a statewide siege, revealing paramilitary structures, encrypted financial networks, and weapons capable of mass casualties. Federal teams uncovered 1 ton of cocaine, 3 tons of gold bullion, 750,000 counterfeit pills, dozens of weapons, and a grenade launcher, evidence that the CJNG had established a forward operating command with the precision of a military cell. Under President Donald Trump's intensified national security posture, the operation demonstrated how transnational criminal groups now function as hybrid threats, part cartel, part insurgency, part cyber-enabled financial syndicate. For families in Athens, Atlanta, and Jefferson, the revelation shattered assumptions about safety. Homes once considered ordinary were exposed as command hubs. College neighborhoods had harbored couriers and encrypted communications. The cartel's drones, shadow banks, and offshore accounts revealed a modern conflict no longer confined to borders. Operation Take Back America severed a critical artery of the network, but the final encrypted message, Phase 3 new routes ready, made one reality clear: the war continues in silence, waiting for its next flashpoint.